News about the former president's newest indictment with Hofstra University law professor James Sample. Professor Sample, great to see you again. Thanks for being with us.
Likewise. Thank you, Chris.
Well, you've joined us to go through several, if not all, of the former president's indictments. You've mentioned before that you felt this could be the strongest case against him. Do you still feel that way after seeing and reading the indictment handed up last night?
I do. The granular detail in this indictment, Chris and Mary, is just extraordinary. I mean, we're talking about an indictment that has a table of contents and is 97 pages long, detailing an extraordinarily complex but highly evidence-based indictment against the former president, but also against 18 other individuals and as many as 30 unnamed co-conspirators. This is a case that has a lot of concrete evidence. It starts with that phone call, but it has all sorts of other concrete evidence, like false slates of electors and the individuals who were pledged to essentially impersonate election officials in the sense of pretending that they were duly elected when they were not, pressuring officials in Georgia government, and even unlawfully breaking into a computer in a rural Georgia county, Coffee County, Georgia, in an attempt to steal the code and therefore potentially flip some votes. Extraordinary, extraordinary levels of detail.
These are state charges. It's widely expected the Fulton County District Attorney will use Georgia's racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations law. Can you explain this particular law, why they might use this?
Sure, Mary. It's interesting. Racketeering laws and New York is actually one of the places where they became most famous. And one of the individuals who was most responsible for making them famous was Rudy Giuliani, who finds himself on the opposite end of a RICO prosecution now. RICO statutes are essentially conspiracies to commit illegal activity, but it's conspiracy on steroids. It's a complex scheme in which there are a large number of overt individual acts, and each act furthers a larger conspiracy. The individual acts in and of themselves may or may not be illegal, but taken together, they form a complex criminal scheme. It's the kind of law that has been used to prosecute gangs. It's the kind of law that's been used to prosecute organized crime and the mafia, including by Rudy Giuliani when he was a federal prosecutor in New York in the 1980s.
All right, so Professor here, for the folks scoring at home, Trump has now been indicted twice on federal charges, twice on state charges in Georgia, and of course here in New York. If these cases get delayed, which is obviously the big tactic with Trump's legal team. Let's say he is elected president in 2024. Could he protect himself from any of these cases?
Well, he can if he's elected president in 2024, he could certainly pardon himself, and we've never had a self-pardon, but it seems quite likely that he would certainly try to pardon himself on the federal charges and probably would succeed. But the president of the United States has no authority to pardon an individual convicted of a state crime. So the New York charges and the Georgia charges could stick and would be insulated from a pardon, at least at the federal level. Now, there may be state scenarios where he could pursue pardons and pressure officials in that regard. But one of the values of a system of federalism is that the states are designed to protect democracy against tyranny. And that's what the Georgia officials here who did their jobs. I mean, some of these election officials, local county election officials, resisting pressure all the way from the White House, they're the real heroes in this story.
What about other people involved in this case? So we've been talking about New York City, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani seems to be a central figure in this indictment.
Absolutely, Mary. He's essentially the hub of the wheel of this entire conspiracy. He's in many respects a co-star, almost on equal footing with the former President Trump himself in this case. There are a number of high-profile individuals, not just for Giuliani, though. Former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, some of the president's lawyers, including John Eastman, and then all the way down, and this is one of the things that RICO charges are really famous for, is that you can get not just the foot soldiers, soldiers. There are a lot of lower level players, but you can also get those high level leaders. And so for those who've looked at January 6th and what happened and the prosecution of the individuals who actually, stormed the Capitol but said, well, the people who are really responsible will never be charged. This is the kind of charge that can allow the upper level decision makers, in addition to the foot soldiers, to end up facing consequences.
And one last question for you before we let you go. There's so many unnamed co-conspirators that are named in these indictments. Does it sound to you as though a number of people have flipped on the former president, or if they haven't, they are soon to be with some of these other co-conspirators, these lower level folks that have now been tied up in this and now see mandatory prison sentences?
Absolutely spot on, correct analysis, Chris. I couldn't have said it better. I think that there are many individuals who probably have flipped, and there is going to be a lot of pressure on individuals who are facing criminal exposure now, but who really were small players, but they can provide important state's evidence.
All right, Professor Sample, thanks so much for taking a few moments. Great to see you.
You too.